Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of Climbing the Ladder. I have just surpassed the 1400 rating on chess.com. Hopefully it stays that way, we'll see. I have a good game today to show you guys, and especially in the middle game, it follows a theme of, okay, a good move presents itself, but when that happens you should stop and think and see if there's an even better move that you can find before jumping the gun and making the obvious move, I guess, in the position. So let's get started. And if you guys like my videos, make sure you like and subscribe. So this game starts off pretty innocuously, an Italian game. I played knight f6. And instead of going for knight g5, my opponent just plays d3. And I continue developing. And here, my opponent, rgautam000, plays bishop b5, which is kind of an interesting move. It's kind of like almost like a delayed Ruy Lopez, where he might actually take this knight and then possibly take the pawn here on e5. But, you know, typically if you want to put your bishop on b5, you're going to do it right away instead of kind of spending an extra move. But I played d6, just defending, shoring up the pawn here. And here we have the first trade of the game. It's fine. I would say, like, when you're white, you usually don't want to trade the light squared bishop early on in the game for the knight like that. I know it doubles the pawns here, but you don't really get much out of it for white. So let's see how this continues. Opponent plays bishop g5, and I choose to utilize my rook here on this open file that was created. So sometimes when you double up your own pawns, you can use this to your advantage, and that's something you should keep in mind. Okay, so my opponent plays knight to d2 here. I was expecting him to just play b3. I had a feeling that this was a poisoned pawn or something that maybe I shouldn't take, but I took the bait. I wanted to see what would happen. So I take it, and my opponent plays knight to b3 here, kind of locking in my rook. And there's not really a great way to dislodge the knight for the time being. I continued development here. I was thinking about this move here, something threatening my rook while it can't move. And I always had this, in the back of my mind. I could just defend here with bishop to a3. What I failed to see was a much more simple move would just be to just retreat his bishop back, all the way back to c1, attacking my rook. And there's not really much I can do at that point to save this rook. I could either trade it for the knight at that point, or what I probably would have done would be to check the king and bring my bishop over here to defend it. So after that capture would occur, I'd have a nice bishop here in my opponent's territory. But luckily, my opponent did attack with the queen, and I simply defended with my bishop. And after moving the queen away, I could have decided to just take my opponent's knight here, being up a pawn, and also, I guess my opponent could, well, he can't castle queenside. Presumably, he's going to be castling kingside, and I could screw up the pawn structure here. But instead of doing that, I played queen to b8, seeing a possible tactic. My other thought here was, okay, I will take this knight here if my opponent castles now. After he commits to the castling, then I will choose to kind of screw up the pawns in front of the castled king. Okay? So my opponent, seeing that I have given up defense here of my knight with the queen, decides this is a good time to take the knight, screw up my pawns, but he fails to see the tactic here. So why don't you guys pause the video if you would like and see if you can find the best move in this position for black. And I'll give you guys a few seconds. Okay, so the correct move is bishop to b4. And that's because the queen and the king are lined up here. The queen is pinned. And now that I've moved my queen over, I've got a defender backing up this bishop. And you might also have noticed that the important thing here is that white can't even push the pawn here to block my bishop, because that opens up my rook to attack the queen as well. Now, this actually would have been the best move anyway, but my opponent did not play that move. You can also see here that for white, it wouldn't be a good idea to take this bishop, because if he does, I'm going to take back the queen back, and I'm going to hit white with check, winning the bishop on the next move. So instead, my opponent just went ahead and captured my pawn here. Since this bishop was hanging before, it's always a good idea. I think what this is known as is a desperado in certain, in certain terminology, and it's basically saying, okay, I'm probably going to lose this piece. I might as well get as much out of it as I possibly can. So he takes the pawn. Do I have to move my rook yet? No. I can take the queen with check. And there's a couple ways for white to take back. He can take back with the knights. He can take back with the king. Probably not the best idea to take with this, since that opens up the file for me. But he went ahead and took with the king. So do I have to move my rook now? Still, no. I hit my opponent with check. And he goes back to c1. Now, this kind of looks interesting. It looks like I may have blundered a rook here, possibly, because I've got 2 rooks now under attack. I'll give you guys another chance to think about this. There's going to be a couple rapid fire here, maybe 1 or 2 more puzzles for you guys to look at. You guys can pause the video and think about. So, it looks like both my rooks are under attack here. What is the right move for black in this position? Okay, so the correct move is not moving the rook. It's playing queen to c3. Not only does this defend the rook here, but more importantly, it threatens checkmate on the next move. So that's pretty important for white to respond to. So the only move here for white that doesn't just immediately lose the game is retreating the knight back to e1, defending this crucial c2 square from checkmate. Okay, and now you may be thinking, okay, now it's time to finally move a rook on h8. Well, think again. I'm going to give you guys one more, a couple more seconds to think about another move here, an alternate move, as opposed to making the simple move here of just simply moving the rook out of the way and attacking the bishop. Is there a better move that you guys can find? Think about it. Okay. So the move that I played was rook captures the knight here on b3. I win the knight, and I'm opening up an attack on the rook here in the corner. And the thing is, if my opponent here chooses to just take the rook, giving up this rook, well, he has blundered forced checkmate. After I take the rook here, the king has 1 move, and this is, well, I guess he has 1 more move after this too, and that now this would deliver checkmate, a forced checkmate. So he has to respond to this, which he does. He takes with this, the only pawn he can take it with, since this guy's pinned. I hit the king with check, another check, and now after however many moves of this rook being under attack, I finally moved my rook to g8. My opponent retreats the bishop. I hit my opponent with another check here. Now, I realized that it was important to keep my queen on the back rank for now, in my mind, because this essentially freezes my opponent's knight. If he ever moves this knight, this rook is totally hanging. But I also wanted to kind of get this diagonal down the middle of the board with my queen. So after the check, my opponent moves, and I move my bishop also out of this open file for my rook as well. And then we have the rook lift attacking the bishop. The bishop goes back to e3. And now I'm going to try to open up the center a little bit. If we trade the pawns here, that's fine with me. My opponent plays c3. And this was the one instance in this game where I didn't stop and think after I saw a good move. I saw a pretty obvious move, I guess, a good move, and I didn't stop and think because this move c3 actually hangs checkmate in 1. This is checkmate. This c3 square was the only escape route for the king, and once he, bottles that up with the pawn, that creates the forced mate here. But I went ahead and played d4 because I saw that this bishop has nowhere to go where it is not under attack, and I went ahead and won that bishop. And that is considered a blunder, although I'm still winning. I should have noticed the mate in 1, but sometimes you can't help it. So my opponent moves my knight here. The rest of this game is mostly just cleanup. I check the king. I lift the rook again because I want to deliver more pressure to my opponent's king. My opponent swings his rook over. Check. I win the pawn here after the king moves out of the way. And he grabs the pawn, but I check him here on b5, and there's nothing else that the king can do. The king can go here, but this is mate. He can go here. It's also mate. So my opponent resigned here. Hope you guys enjoyed the game. You know, the game was probably decided mostly after my opponent missed this tactic here with the rook and the bishop. But there was a good, you know, there was a good exhibition of some interesting moves here that if I didn't stop and think before before I made a move, I would have probably not have seen these. But just noticing these moves and not making the gut reaction of just moving the rook out of the way, finding something better. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I will catch you next time.